great. Thanks, Maya. All right. I just got the notification. You got the recording going as well. So this is great. Jackie and I had the chance to catch up last week and would love to just let you guys all in on some of the conversation. I know I learned a lot, and in these changing times, I find it so helpful to get together with other leaders and continue to talk about innovation and the things that are top of mind. It helps to inspire. It helps us to stay in that mode of serving our clients best when we're hearing from leaders like this. So yeah, Jackie, let's hop in. And one of the things that we talked about was this transition stage that we're in from really being in our homes and wearing masks and how that's impacted the beauty industry as a whole. And so one of the stats that we pulled out, we kind of talked about and chatted around, was that lipstick sales are up 80% year over year, but now especially as mask restrictions are lifting. Talk to us a little bit about how is Coty seeing this trend? Are there any other categories that you're seeing a spike in sales in terms of Coty Beauty? And chat a little bit about that.
It's interesting because I've seen this all over the news recently, and I'm a big news consumer. So, there's been a lot of chat in Forbes and CNN about lipstick trends being up, but I kind of laugh because it's overall sales trends being up right at the moment. So it's hard to really, narrow in to necessarily, lipstick on its own. I would say that the general trend with lipstick is, yes, we are seeing, sales up. And I would say that, in terms of recent category spike sales over the pandemic, a lot of people turned towards skin. And I think when this, Zoom era of no makeup looks are kind of being more prevalent, we've seen less people going to events and functions and social gatherings. And so there, the increase in skincare and the focus on skin has really been where it is. But that's not to say that we've shied away from makeup either. People are at home, and in particular with Coty, I mean, I work on Gucci Beauty with Sephora, and we started the pandemic with a whole gondola of lipsticks. And we just had to pivot. And we galvanized sales. We were the number one in most categories at our launches. I think what you're seeing though right now is just there's been a slight shift in what types of lipsticks people are buying at the moment. So we've just launched a new lipstick called Glow and Care, which is a really light shine sheer coverage. So I think you're seeing people step away from the heavy look and wear into more, cleaner looks. But I won't discredit the fact that, you're talking about lipsticks and whether other trends are are we seeing more prevalent? I think it's also fragrance sales. I mean, Coty dominates the market in terms of fragrance. And, in terms of the pandemic, we've seen, fragrances being a small way for, consumers to kind of treat themselves. So it's a way to kind of step into your Zoom world as we are. And I can smell myself right now, as the pandemic can continue, as I think that people will continue to dress up that way, particularly when they're getting, back to the office.
Yes, I completely agree. And I mean, I know we chatted through this too, just even looking at your own experiences as a woman in the marketplace of the importance, very quickly sharing with our teams of you still want to wake up and put on your best self. And if that means a little bit of mascara, or if that means a full skincare routine plus all of the makeup things, then you do that. But it really does help when working from home or even transitioning back to office to get in that mindset. And it's, I think that it's amazing to me how makeup and fragrance and the things that you're talking about helps create that mindset and connection. So I love that. One other thing that we talked about too, and I know at GroundTruth, and being focused and centered around what our clients need was rapidly changing through the pandemic. It was like one day we had clients that were like, Rachel, we are struggling with logistics and supply issues. So we're on the back end trying to solve those problems. How can we take our media and figure out how to create efficiencies for our clients and shift in those ways? So we were launching products to be able to connect shoppers and drive sales at retailers in those meaningful ways in real time as fast as possible. So for you, in new product releases and hearing your shoppers and wanting to connect with them in meaningful ways, did the pandemic help move up any new product releases or launches that maybe you weren't anticipating or scheduled for this last past year?
I think the biggest shift we actually saw for us at least was not necessarily the shift in releases. In fact, we just kept accelerating with the plans that we had. What we did see is purchase behavior change. And the biggest shift that's happened is people are obviously consuming more on digital, being their purchases are made through digital. So, digital media becomes more important. The way we look at the changing behaviors in terms of what we put online in terms of our product pages, the customer experience there becomes so much more important. So, videos, making unique assets. I go through and check, and like I'm a consumer, and say, if I was buying a lipstick online, just for the sake of using lipstick as the example, am I understanding what that's going to look like on my face? Do I truly know what that color is like? Can I get a sense of the formulation? So can I have a virtual experience that's sincere, that essentially converts me to a purchase? So that's where, asset creation and digital media is becoming so much more important than it was. I think we had saw it happening before the pandemic, but even more accelerated right now. And I think that that's not going to change. I think that what will be really interesting now is, we've seen the acceleration happen across the board, and whether that can, when brick and mortar starts to open again, as it has, we're starting to see that digital prevalence starting to happen in store, with people more, familiar with QR codes, et cetera. And, whether or not it's, mostly online, or whether it's still, I think it'll still accelerate online, but whether the purchase behavior is mostly online and where that ends up being will be an interesting space to watch. But in terms of launches, we accelerated them across the board. Luxury brands were so important through the pandemic, surprisingly enough, even though there was a drop of income for some people. But it's really just, the shifts have been things like more of complexion, et cetera, where we saw acceleration. And we did launch foundation through that time, and did exceptionally well in our bronzers too.
That's great. Yes, absolutely. And even though I felt like with the pandemic, those winter months, you're inside, but you wanted your skin glowing, and so I definitely could see how bronzers would be on the rise during that time. That's fantastic. Were there any products or innovations that you felt like you needed to shift and put on the back burner as you were kind of shifting in real time to what was happening?
No, we didn't actually move one launch. So, I think in terms of, launches, they've all stuck to plan, and we've delivered. And I think we wanted to accelerate, coming beyond lip and moving into kind of a full face a look very quickly, and service a client, because there was a lot of demand there. I mean, people love, if we're talking just color, people love Gucci. So they're wanting to purchase it rapidly and wanting more of a selection. So we accelerated.
That's awesome. And with that acceleration too, and thinking about, in my terms of business for GroundTruth, being a leading mobile location company and performance based in terms of trying to prove out sales and performance, we talked a little bit about the screens that were involved. And I know one of the trends that we definitely saw with consumers was making the most of streaming. And I know even many of us talk about how many of you were already streaming this morning, or have been streaming during meetings, and connecting with CTV and OTT. So in terms of advertising and assets, did you feel like you leaned in any one way more than another during this pandemic, or saw that trend within, Coty's advertising as well?
It's so interesting, this question too, because yes is the answer, but you can answer it as a customer too. I mean, What I did see them like, I'm going to talk very broadly, but what we did see the prevalence of is a huge engagement with TikTok. And in terms of a live stream like we are today, I mean, there were ways that we were able to do virtual events with Sephora where we were able to educate the customers and be able to reward them by essentially, using your points to come and get a reward by education of doing your looks. And so many people had the time to be able to, be engaged with teaching themselves. Maybe they're on their to-do list was teaching themselves how to, do better makeup looks through the pandemic. But I would say in sort of media, offerings and what we were churning out, I think pretty much 100% of what we were doing shifted to digital in terms of media buying and planning. But then, the typical and, the 10 years ago clicks that were happening, they changed forms too. And so I think really the emergence of TikTok and interesting media forms. I think we look to China a lot for so many reasons, which we can talk about a little bit more for inspiration. But I think it's just, the types of media are definitely changing. I don't know about streaming other than for the education point of view, but definitely, new tools. Virtual try-ons and how we could, do things, accelerate things in a different way and partnering with new and different partners. I mean, Sephora's first to market on a lot of things that they do. So, we were the first to test and learn with a lot of their new kind of digital platforms for sure. And it mostly had to do with kind of shopping carts and ways to be able to capture audiences and convert them to sales.
Yes.
I think that's where the focus has ended up being.
Yeah, absolutely. And, in terms of planning for next year, I see that trend continuing of how can we make that more of a seamless approach from creating media that's meaningful and connecting with shoppers, consumers in the right way at the right moments, but also making it seamless for purchase. And so as you're planning for this next year, what types of trends do you feel like came up during the pandemic that you are planning and thinking will continue into this next year?
It's interesting because again, I in terms of the trends on product or media or both.
Both, yeah.
Both. So I think you'll see this prevalence of skincare looks continue, like lighter shades for sure. I think like dewy kind of soft glows you'll start to see continue. I feel like we're going to see huge spikes in sales towards the end of the year. So, capitalizing on that for sure. And how do we continue to engage the consumer and, in a very narrow way and reach her in a very kind of targeted way.
Yes, I definitely agree. And speaking with our clients that we're partnering with on their media, I know it's been kind of this almost polarizing thoughts. You've got one side that's saying consumer spend as a whole is going up in this back half of the year because people want to get out, they want to spend money, and they're ready to kind of treat themselves even more. Maybe they've found that new job or they've gotten that promotion now that the economy is opening back up. So they're saying maybe we're going to pull back on advertising. But where we see our clients leaning in and doing well is this is our time. We're going to get ahead. We're actually going to launch new products. We're going to grab their attention and do exciting things. And I feel like when I look at Coty and I look at all of the things that you're doing, you guys tend to be trendsetters and the first in the winners in those types of ways. So is there any kind of things that you can share with us about back half that you're excited about?
I'm just excited about how much we're going to sell back. That's the number one thing for me. I mean, in terms of accelerating, it's a rapid speed of launches that are happening. And, I'd love to say there are some major launches happening towards the end of the year. A massive one with Sephora. You'll see a lot of stuff coming rapidly on Gucci. I think, for me, what I'll start to just, pepper into is the world of cross-selling. You know, we have fashion brands that, you know, sell fragrances and makeup and like, so what, you know, what does the world of cross-selling look like? And how do, you know, you get a consumer to think of an omni buy and increase their basket size. So, you know, you think of a lipstick purchase with a fragrance purchase, you know, with a piece of clothing maybe in a store. And that, you know, Sephora is now launching within Kohl's, which is another very interesting topic to talk about. But, you know, where is the consumer going to be shopping, and that interesting behavior coming towards the end of the year and what's coming out there. But we have some major launches happening around September, October, and holiday period. And I just think that I can't give anything away.
Of course.
But look out for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, you know, with the company as a whole, there's so much incredible things going on. It's just a really nice time to be in beauty, you know, and a really nice time to work with, you know, brands like Gucci and retailers like Sephora, because they are doing so well and have pivoted so fast with strategy.
Absolutely. In terms of strategy, also, I think the messaging has changed. And so when we look at the way that we're talking to consumers and shoppers, that has also shifted and will continue to shift in real time. I know that that's always the challenge of brands, but how do you feel like Coty has adapted to that messaging, and what are some of the things that they're thinking about when talking to shopper consumer?
Relevancy, like
Mhm.
for sure, relevancy. You know, what's meaningful to a customer and where are they and what are they doing? I think consumer behavior is more important than ever. You know, and making that super targeted, which I said earlier too, but I think it's all about customer relevancy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and I think one thing too with relevancy that we're helping bridge the gap with at GroundTruth is that location-based piece is still more relevant now more than ever, because you've had this behavior for this last year of maybe you've been in home, you've been quarantining, you've really been trying to limit your exposure. And now that the rise of the vaccine and other things makes people more comfortable getting out and about, you want to understand those behaviors. Are they new behaviors? Where are they going now that maybe they've never been before? And what are those new patterns that we're seeing out of these shoppers to be able to connect with them? So in terms of insights also, what are the things that Cody's looking at in terms of trying to understand that behavior?
I think we look at China for a lot of the consumer trends. I mean, what you talked about location accuracy, it's not something I've seen a huge deep dive into at the moment, because we do a lot of more national media and awareness, and then we work on trade marketing, I would say, for the most part. But, you know, the topic as a whole in the marketing community is so interesting. You know, when you talk about location-based targeting, push notifications and things like that, to me, it really does floor me, the amount of intelligence that now has gone into the digital world. Where, you know, I can either talk about something and the Alexa in my house will pick up and it's suddenly on my Instagram, or, you know, I may go into a store or search something online and, you know, it's come up on my phone again. So I really think the intelligence behind those types of mediums will definitely be deeper dove into. I think, you know, we partner a lot. I think we talked a little bit about our pre-conversation about how we partner with, you know, companies externally. And it really is a partnership about, you know, Sephora generating ideas, or media partners generating ideas, you know, or our internal community generating ideas. It's really where, you know, those trends are going and being discussed is where our focus is at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. And which is right on par with relevancy and what you're talking about, you know, using those insights to really meet those shoppers, consumers where they're at in a relevant way. And, you know, with what we do too, and discovering what those trends are. I know with Instagram and social listening and things like that we've talked about, you know, sometimes it is kind of, I think that our today's shopper has gotten almost a little bit conditioned to having things handed to them. The other day I opened up and I was looking for luggage for an upcoming business travel, which, you know, is a whole new thing now, the trying to get back into business travel. had just even loosely mentioned to my husband and looking for luggage. And then, several hours later, being able to see those ads pop up within Instagram that have new luggage. And so, using that as kind of tools to be able to get what you need in real time. So that's been a big shift in trends. So how can vendors and partners help you more in thoughtful ways, or other than with just media executions, but in general, how are you working with vendors that you find to be most helpful in being able to serve that end shopper and consumer?
I think the business with any partner, and we talked about this before, is just that it's a partnership. There's more than one person involved. So the insights in terms of our vendors and partners giving us intelligence data, or any intelligence ideas, the way they challenge our ideas to fuel a better business is a key theme that I think is so important with partnerships with vendors. And other, agency partners, I would say, there's so many ideas to galvanize a business. Media is just I could say half, but I think even just a quarter of it. It pools the fish, as we talked about before, in terms of the blanket, awareness play. But the trick is always, how do you catch the fish, to convert them to a sale? And to me, that's always come down to the 4 principles of marketing, which people forget about because they spend so much time talking about the promotion. You have to have the fundamentals of a good product. Like, why has Gucci done so well this year with launching, beauty? Because they created an incredible brand that has a very loyal following, and then they put all their wonderful intelligence into product formulation, and then it comes to the right price and the right placement alongside the promotion. So if you don't have that perfect kind of formula in place, you're never going to win. So how can vendors and partners partner best with you? To me, I bring the product and a bit of the price and partnership too, but it's they help a lot with the placement and the promotion, and by bringing a lot of ideas to the table. And you were talking about media earlier, which again, I would say you're bringing the intelligence and the excellence when it comes to new ways of media. Our partners are coming to us all the time with ideas of how to play in a new media world. And we carve out a certain amount of budget and time for what we call test and learn. And sometimes the tests are amazing, and we see rapid sales as a result of that. And sometimes the tests, they didn't do very well, but it's I learned from a previous leader of mine, it's just if you're going to fail cheap and fail fast. Recover, get over it, and move on to the next, So, and part of that is all holding hands together as a team, and when you fail, you're failing together too. And you pat yourself on the back, and then you get up and you move on.
Yes. I think that's such valuable advice too. I know that Brand Innovators as a whole has a lot of audience that is new to maybe shopper marketing or marketing in general. And so being able to hear from somebody at your level, what you're thinking about and ways to partner with vendors, I think that's such great advice. I know GroundTruth recently, we brought our team for our first offsite since the pandemic here to Bentonville, Arkansas, and thinking about our suppliers that supplied to Walmart, which again, different retailers than your luxury brands, but even as simple as doing a store walk and understanding the 4 P's of marketing, like you said, understanding that placement. What are the challenges to find that product that shoppers might be having or consumers might be having that we can help use our technology to bridge to be able to get them there easier or raise awareness in a different way or a meaningful way? And what challenges does that product have in terms of placement? Maybe it's on the very top shelf and it's harder for people to reach or even to notice. So I love that you brought that up, because those basic fundamentals, if we as vendors really truly are thinking about you as a brand and who you're trying to reach in those challenges, and we bring you ideas that are based on those and forward thinking and test and learn, then you're right, it's going to continue to be valuable and relevant to serving you best. So
that makes me stand at the end of my seat, because those ideas is what I really get excited about. And truly I do, because there's 2 themes that came out while we were talking. One is the sense of objectivity. You can't discredit the fact that someone coming from outside essentially has the most amount of objectivity, because you navel gaze so much towards your business. So you give an idea and you may think it's a bad one, but it's probably genius because you have the objectivity.
Yes.
That people working maybe for years and don't have anymore. The second thing, and I really express this because you talked about a lot of people being new to the industry. I mean, grassroots, what I had learned in the first part of my career as a marketer, because I started in marketing and now I'm in sales, is that you need to understand your business. And if you do not fundamentally have a commitment to understanding your business, you're never going to be successful at your job. It, hands down. And, in the first few years of my career, I was asked to go in the call center because I worked in telecommunications way back when, and go into a store and sell the product. And I thought, no way, why would I do that? And, I had to do it in terms of this kind of university training world. And to this day, I still do it. And it's part of the fundamentals of what Coty does. We do store tours all the time. Our CEO is out there. Everybody's out there, just first of all, to build the relationship with people out there. Second of all, there is nobody smarter than the people in our field, truly. I know some of my field people may be watching right now, but in my past life and some of my jobs, I have gone out and learned more about what works and what doesn't work by talking to the consumer or talking to people who are in stores every day. I will give an example of a brand that I used to work on, but there was a demand for brushes, makeup brushes. And one of the salespeople said, we need brushes. And, I was like, I don't know if we can launch brushes. And of course we came out with a brush and, it really sold very, very well and capitalized on a lot of sales. So that intelligence, if there's one thing that you do early on in your career and continue to do, it's learn from the audience. Because even from a marketing level, we had brochures in markets and we were using them as selling tools. And when I tried to sell to a consumer, I was like, this is awful. So it's like, don't get too close to what you think is an ivory tower, get in the weeds, because you need to see that will fuel your decision-making and make you so much more empowered and be a better partner if you're talking about relationships.
Yes, absolutely. And in that mindset shift, I'll say with CTV and OTT, one of our newest product offerings, yes, it came from talking with consumers, talking with who we were likely trying to reach and some of their pain points. And I know one of the pain points was when they experienced when marketers bulk buy. So you're watching a show and every single commercial is the exact same commercial for that 30 seconds and you can't skip it, you can't go anywhere, and it leads to frustration. And so at GroundTruth, we kind of took that insight of this is a pain point for the customer, that in-shopper consumer, and how can we make sure that we're not doing that so that they're having a positive experience with brand and with the product. So I think that's so valuable, just to what you said of listening to, you can never forget who is the actual customer and what are they thinking about, what matters to them, what's frustrating to them, and using that to kind of guide decisions also.
Yeah, because it's like, don't assume that everyone does things the same way that you do, first of all. And second of all, don't ever assume while you're sitting in the back that that people are behaving the way you think they're going to behave, because chances are they're not.
Yes.
Or even like my example earlier, I'm going to a website and I'm like, I can't buy a product. How's the customer going to buy a product?
Right.
So it's simple. You don't need to leave your house sometimes, but you have to do it across all facets.
Yes, absolutely. I know that we could talk for hours because Jackie, I love visiting with you and I always learn so much too. And I know that the audience has questions, so feel free to put those in the chat and we will get to those and want to make sure that we can answer those. So any other questions that you all have, feel free to go ahead and put those in now. And I know we just have a few minutes left, but I just wanted to thank Jackie too. I know that I've learned a lot from you and we've gotten a chance to visit. I know that even some of the things we talked about last week, I went back to my team and was like, Jackie brought this up, and this is a really good point. We need to think about this in this way. And again, with partnership with vendors as well is so valuable when partnering. GroundTruth as a whole really wants to make sure that we are providing value. And so being able to have you share honestly and openly feedback is invaluable to teams like ours. So thank you for that. Ryan, I saw you hop on there. Was there any other questions or anything that you wanted us to cover in Brand Innovators that we didn't already?
Nothing here on my end. Everything is tip top. Would love to obviously continue this discussion, but we do have a few other ones that we need to roll into. So next time let's book an hour instead.